Would you rather know that something was going to cause you pain or be uncertain about whether or not it would? Now you might say, well, I'd rather be uncertain than be guaranteed pain. But the truth is, human beings would rather experience pain than the uncertainty of whether or not they were going to experience pain. Let me explain. There was a research study conducted where two groups of participants were put in a room, and the first group was told that they were going to get an electric shock. Nothing that would send them to the emergency room, but something that would be uncomfortable or even painful. And then there was a second group of participants who were brought into the same room and told that there was a 50% chance that they would get shocked. Who do you think had more anxiety? The people who knew that the pain was coming or the people who didn't know for sure? Well, it was the people who didn't know for sure. Their anxiety rose significantly higher with that uncertainty than the people who knew they were going to get a shock that would create some pain. So there it is. Generally speaking, as humans, we hate uncertainty more than we hate the guarantee of some kind of discomfort or pain. So what do we do about this? Life is full of uncertainty, and we can't avoid it. So if we hate uncertainty so much and it's unavoidable, what are we going to do about it? I'm going to tell you in this talk. But first, if you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you are back again, it is always good to have you. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, the button's about right down there. If you get something out of the video, if you could like it, that would be amazing. Either way, my name is Kristina, and I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, a speaker, and an author, and the creator of my membership community, the Shift Society, where we are taking this work to the next level. You can get more information about the Shift Society in the description below. I help heart-centered humans think better, feel better, show up better, and have better so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. And just before we get into this, I want to let you know that I am here in Vancouver and we're in the middle of a heat wave and I do not have air conditioning in my home. So I have all the doors and windows open to get some airflow so I don't melt into a puddle while I'm talking to you. So if you hear any background noise, then you will know what that is all about. So uncertainty. Human brains do not like it. And I remember for myself a few years ago, I had a dog barking phobia. Not afraid of dogs, but really didn't like the loud, sharp sound. And specifically, more than the loud, sharp sound, I didn't like the unpredictableness of it. I would get more anxious around a dog who would bark at different random intervals without any warning than a dog that would sit there barking constantly. So it wasn't even really the loud noise, it was the unpredictableness of that loud noise, when it was going to come, and even how loud it would be. What about you? Where in your life do you struggle with uncertainty? Take a second and think about which uncertainties you find the most difficult. Is it not knowing what someone thinks about you, how someone feels about you? Not knowing what path you should take in life because you don't want to make a mistake? Feeling uncertain about going for a promotion because you don't know if you're going to get it, or starting a new career because you don't know if you're going to like it, or continuing on in a relationship because you don't know how long it's going to last, or if it's going to end, or if the person's going to leave you and you're going to have a broken heart? Is it around choosing a menu item when you're out for a meal because you're not certain about whether or not that's going to be the best choice and you're going to love it and it's going to satisfy all of your culinary desires? Or maybe it's something like not knowing if you should go to a social event because you don't know if you're going to feel awkward, if you're going to feel uncomfortable, if you're going to say something that you regret. What is it that you struggle with when it comes to uncertainty, when the outcome is not guaranteed, when there is a chance that you might fail, be hurt, or disappointed, and you can't fully control that outcome? As we talked about, human brains hate uncertainty because we don't know whether or not we're going to have to experience pain, disappointment, or failure. But here's the thing. It's not really the pain, the disappointment, or the failure that we are afraid of. It's our thoughts about pain, disappointment, and failure and what we make that mean. And even though there is also the possibility that we could be successful, that it could go well, that we could get the outcome that we want, often we stop ourselves from even trying, adventuring, putting ourselves out there, taking the risk because we are so afraid of that hurt, that disappointment, or that failure. But here's the thing. It's not the hurt, the disappointment, or the failure that we are afraid of. It's our thoughts about the hurt, the disappointment, or failure, and what we make those mean. So I'm going to teach you 4 different ways to get better at dealing with uncertainty so that it doesn't have to be this thing that stands in your way, that holds you back, that makes you even sabotage things that are important to you or that you want because of that fear of the uncertainty, which we now know is not the uncertainty itself, but your thoughts about that uncertainty. The first one, create acceptance of uncertainty, knowing, as I said, that it's an inevitable part of life. Uncertainty means that you are showing up in life. It means that you are trying things. It means that you are putting yourself out there. It means that you are having different experiences. It means that you are engaging in life fully. With that engagement, with that showing up, comes the potential that things don't go the way that you want. But that is part of showing up, because the other part of it is, it also has the possibility that it will turn out, that it will go the way that you want, that it will be the outcome that you were hoping for. And so taking that into account and knowing that if you want to show up in life and have a rich and rewarding and full life, you have got to accept that uncertainty is part of it. It's not terrible. It's not awful. It's not just you who is experiencing it. It is everyone. And nobody likes it, but we get better at doing it anyways. And one of the things that makes it a lot easier to deal with is if we are able to create space for those big feelings that come up when we are going through disappointment or failure or some kind of loss or things not going the way that we want it to. Creating space for those feelings, learning to be able to process those feelings, learning to be able to be with yourself through those feelings, not getting suffocated by them or pushed down by them or stuck in them or spiraling in them or ruminating in them or running away and hiding because of them. Learning to process those emotions, learning to allow yourself to have big feelings and seeing that you can actually handle having big feelings, that they are not dangerous. They might be uncomfortable, but essentially a feeling is just a sensation in your body that isn't always even physically painful. Did you know that the same physiological sensations show up in our body with both anxiety and excitement? And you would never say that this excitement hurts so much, but you would say this anxiety hurts so much. But it's the same physiological sensation. So learning how to identify and be with your feelings and process them. And if this is something that you want to get better at and learn how to do, I have the Sensitive Person's Guide to Handling Big Feelings. For those of us who are big feelers, our feelers and feelings do feel bigger. And we often need some really good tools to handle them and to process them. So that guide you can get in the description below. As you increase your capacity for big feelings, you will be able to handle bigger things. You'll be able to put yourself out there in bigger, more meaningful and important ways for you. And the other thing is, the more that you put yourself out there and you meet yourself where you're at, if those big, difficult feelings come up and you process them and show yourself that you can handle them, the more courage you'll have the next time to put yourself out there to try something that's uncertain, because you know that if it doesn't go the way that you want, you will be able to handle it. And then it just creates this beautiful cycle of being there with and for yourself and putting yourself out there and trying new things and living more fully and having bigger experiences and enjoying your life more. Because again, you can handle whatever comes. The third thing, being able to trust that you will catch and not kick yourself if you fall. The interesting thing is that we often fear failure or disappointment because we think it's the failure or the disappointment that is going to hurt. But more often than not, it's not the failure or disappointment that hurts. It's how we treat ourselves in the aftermath. I knew you couldn't do it. What's wrong with you? You don't have what it takes. You're not lovable. You're not worthy enough. You should just not even bother. Whatever that is that we turn on ourselves, we kick ourselves when we're down. We see this disappointment or this failure or this setback as a personal mark on ourselves, on our worthiness, even in a lot of cases. And so that feels awful. Of course, you don't want to put yourself out there and deal with uncertainty for the chance that it could go the way you don't want it to because of how you're going to treat yourself if you do. And that feels terrible. And I know firsthand for this one, because this used to be me so much. I used to be so hard on myself whenever I would fail, and I would turn so hard against myself, and I would call myself down, and I would beat myself up, and it made it so that I didn't even want to put myself out there. Not because I was afraid of the failure, but because of how I was going to treat myself if I did. That is the part that felt terrible. And the good news is that I've become so much better at failure and putting myself out there and trying new things, because I don't see failure as this mark on my worthiness. I just see it as, okay, I either got what I wanted or I learned something in the process. And failure is just information. And as soon as we commit to trusting that we will catch instead of kick ourselves when we fall, that we will be there for ourselves, that we won't turn against ourselves, that we will be that friend to ourselves, not that friend that's like, see, I told you you couldn't do it. See, I told you you sucked. I told you that you weren't good enough for that. And if you do have friends like that, then I'm going to give you a little tip. It's time to make new friends. But I'm guessing you don't have friends like that. So make sure you are not that friend to yourself. If you struggle with trusting that you're going to be there for yourself, if you struggle with being good to yourself because you don't feel worthy enough or valuable enough or just good enough, and you've got these distorted thoughts and beliefs in your head about some kind of inferiority that you are as a human being, then we need to do something about that. We need to go deeper, and you need to build that self-trust. And I have a guide for you. It's the simple steps to self-trust. You can get that and go deeper on that after this talk. The third thing, play it out. That question we often get stuck on that makes us afraid, anxious, depressed, crazy. What if? What if it doesn't work out? What if I get rejected? What if I don't get the job? What if I make a fool of myself? What if they're thinking this about me? What if I can't get that thing that's important to me? What if everything goes terribly wrong? Okay, answer the question. What if? What if this happens? What is the worst case scenario? And then decide how you would deal with it. Have a conversation with yourself. And the truth is that often this worst case scenario is this sort of unanswered kind of dark cloud that's hanging over us. We're like, what if this happens? And it feels so terrible and so awful, and like we can't even handle it. But then when you actually break it down and look at like, what's the worst case thing that could happen? What's the worst case scenario? It's not that big of a deal. And even in that, even of itself, can be enough for you to be like, oh, it's actually not terrible or awful or something I could never handle. It's not that big of a deal, and I'm going to do this thing because I will be able to handle whatever comes. Or if it is something that's bigger, that does feel more vulnerable, if it is an outcome that you don't want to have to deal with, well, just ask yourself how you would if it came to that. What if this happens? Yeah, it won't feel great. It won't be the best. It won't be what I want, but how will I deal with it? How will I figure it out? How will I move through it? And that's another way to build that self-trust, to show yourself that like, oh, I can actually handle this. I can actually deal with this. Again, it's not going to feel amazing, but I have dealt with and gotten through things that haven't felt amazing before, and I've come out the other side. So take that stock, look at those receipts, show yourself that you can actually handle things if they don't go the way that you want them to. And again, if you are creating space for that uncertainty, if you are creating space for the emotions that come with any kind of undesirable outcome, and if you are trusting yourself to be there with and for yourself, if it doesn't work out, then uncertainty all of a sudden doesn't feel so scary. There's nothing we can actually do to prevent any kind of uncertainty, but we can, with these 4 skills, get so much better at handling it, and it becomes so much less difficult to deal with. If you want to learn some effective, research-backed ways to process and deal with your big feelings, get that Sensitive Person's Guide to Handling Big Feelings. And if you want to build a more secure, stable, confident relationship with yourself, that starts with self-trust. So make sure you grab that simple steps to self-trust. Both or either are in the description below. Let me know. What do you find difficult to deal with when it comes to uncertainty? And what are you going to use from this talk that's going to help you deal with it better? I love hearing from you in the comments. Until next time, take good care of yourselves, take good care of those around you. Bye for now.